So our DB context is ready, and all we have to do now is to add it to our configuration inside the startup class. So let's go to our startup class, and here we will simply add it after the connection string. So we'll use the services, which is the argument here, dot add, and we are adding the DB context. Now what DB context? Well, we want the book DB context. That's the class we just created here. So we have to import the namespace, which is in services, and we need to specify what server and connection is to be used. And in our case, we want to use the SQL server, so we will use a lambda expression for that, C for connection, and we'll use c.use SQL server, and you can see it's underlined. We need to import the namespace, which is Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. And for the server, we need to specify the connection string, and the connection string is right here. That's what we want. We just created one before. So this connects to the server using the connection string that we created. And now we are finally ready to actually create the database. So let's do it. To create a database, we just need to go to Tools and then choose Package Manager Console. So let's do that. Tools, and here go to NuGet Package Manager and the console, and I'm gonna move it up so you can see what I'm typing. Now we do not need to create the database manually. We let the Entity Framework do it for us as part of a migration. So we simply add a migration. So we'll do add migration, and I'll name the migration initial database creation. So let's press enter and see what happens. And I got an error saying that it was unable to resolve a service while attempting to activate book API project services.bookdb context. So there's something wrong with the bookdb context class that I missed. So here we have the DB sets, and we have, let me just scroll this down, we have the model builder. So we inherit from DB context. Oh, that's what it is. We have the options here, and we are passing the actual DB context, but that doesn't have the book DB context. The book DB context is what's inheriting from DB context. If we just pass in the DB context, we won't have access to book DB context. But when we pass in the book DB context, we will have access to all this that we created here, as well as all the functionality of DB context. So that's what needs to be passed in. We need to pass in the book DB context as the type for the DB context options. My bad, I apologize, but it happens. This is how you do it. Sometimes errors creep up, but we're here to solve them. So let's try again. I'm going to add the migration initial database creation, press enter again, and let's hope that was the last thing we needed to do. And it was. Look at that. We have our migration created. It's right here. You can see that it created the initial database creation migration, and it has all the tables ready to be submitted or inserted into our database. So you can see that we have the book categories right here. For example, we have the authors table, we have all the columns with the first name, last name. And notice that, for example, for the authors, we also have country ID, which is the foreign key, because each author is related to a country. So we have the country ID added to it. So you can review this. And there's also, of course, the down method, which basically reverses any changes. If you make a mistake or something, we can run the down method to revert all the changes. Alright, so our migration is ready, and now we can actually send it to our database. So technically, it's not really an update since we are creating a database, but that is the command for the migration. So we'll add the command, which is update dash database. And if the database doesn't exist, the migration will simply create it. So let's run it. And my database was created with no errors. So you can see everything has been passed into it. And now let's review it. So I'll go to view and I'll view the server objects, SQL Server Object Explorer. And we created the book API project database. If you don't first see it in your local DB, just refresh it and then go there again into the databases. And I have a bunch of them. You may have none or maybe several, but here is mine that I just created, book API project. That's the name of my project as well as the database. So let's have a quick view what's in there. Here's our tables. And we have the authors. We have the categories, books, another categories for just a single category, country, reviewers, and reviews. So let's right click on authors, for example, and see view designer. I'll scroll this down, we don't need that. And you can see here are our properties, ID, first name, last name, and the country ID, which you can see over here. The country ID is the foreign key in this table. Let's look at book authors, which links the books and authors together. Let's do the designer view again. And we have the book ID and author ID in it. This is basically just going to link the ID for the book and the ID for the author. And you can see that each of them is marked as a key because this is the many-to-many relationship and this is our intermediary table for it. Let's look at books. And we have the ID, ISBN, title, and date published. So you can see that there is no relationship here between the book and the authors or categories. That's why we have the intermediary tables. And if you right click on any of these tables and go to view data, this is where our data will be, but currently we of course don't have any. The database was successfully created, but now we need to seed the database with the data.